just a minute. First things first, let's go ahead and approve the minutes from January. If everyone had a chance to see those, any corrections? Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve. They're very nicely done.
Thanks, Greg. Matthew gets all the credit for note taking.
I'll second.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, and I will go through the roster and ask for everybody's vote. Keith, how do you vote?
Approved.
Greg made the motion. Amy Easter, how do you vote?
I was not present for that meeting, so I'm not sure if I should vote on the minutes.
Mark, you guys abstained.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thanks.
Carol Hoover, you made the second on that. Michael, how do you vote?
Approved.
All right, thank you. Sharon?
Approved.
Kimberly, since you didn't have a chance to participate, we'll mark you the same as we did with Amy. So, Sharon, that motion passes.
Okay, great. Thank you all. As you can see, we do have 2 new people joining us today. We've had, as you know, AJ has now moved to Cincinnati. So last month was his last meeting with us. And we had another vacancy that needed to be filled. So we have Amy Easter and Kim Wilson, both with us today as new members. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves briefly, just kind of who you are, background, and what your interest was in being part of this group. And I'm going to start just where you are on my screen. So Amy, I think several of these folks know you, but not all. So it'd be great for them to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. I'm on my little Chromebook, so it's not got the power of my MacBook. So I'm Amy Easter. I'm affiliated with the Winston-Salem Cycling Advocacy Network, or Winston-Salem CAN. I helped co-found that organization back in 2016. I'm also involved with Beers and Gears and the Forsyth Off-Road Bicycle Association. I was originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I've been in North Carolina most of my life. Spent a little time in Greensboro and Raleigh, but I've been in Winston for almost 10 years now. So got involved in biking in college, commuting, and did a little bit more just social riding and bike packing, and then got involved in advocacy because I thought, man, there's some issues here, and I'd like to think that we can fix them. So got involved in those organizations, and I'm really excited to join this group because Winston-Salem CAN was actually very involved in pushing this commission into its existence. So I'm really pleased that it's been formed and excited about the work that's coming out of it and just happy to be involved. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kim, welcome.
Hi, I'm Kim Wilson. Amy, I think we probably moved here around the same time. I've been in Winston for almost 10 years. I'm a mental health therapist. I work with the aging population, primarily people with Alzheimer's disease and their caregivers. And loss of mobility and transportation is a big issue that I deal with, just in terms of being able to, for older adults to have independence. They need to have like more walkable space. And can you guys hear me okay? I feel like I might be cutting out. I'm okay? All right. And then I also do community volunteer work with the refugee population and witnessing how difficult transportation is when you don't have a vehicle, and noticing how few spaces are walkable and all the kind of treacherous side roads and main roads that people have to walk on to get to and from work makes me want to be an advocate. And then of course I live downtown because walking is important to me and always has been. I want to be able to walk to have access to my neighborhood and community. And so I'm just excited to get to see how this works and to help advocate for more pedestrian independence.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm really excited. I'm excited that Amy's here, but I'm also really excited that you're here because we tend to be very cycling heavy in our conversations, and to be reminded of that. Just so you know, you'll see on your screen, Kelly is with Department of Transportation with City of Winston-Salem. So she listens in on our meetings and kind of tears up with Matthew, some of those layers that we elevate conversations and ideas to. So again, I'm really glad you're here. It's great. Thanks. Okay. Moving into, well, first, just a little background. I mentioned in my welcome note to you both that we are an advocacy group, so we do kind of dig into things as they come across our radar, and then we elevate those up within Department of Transportation and other city departments up to the assistant city manager and then to city council. So that's sort of what we're doing. We're only a year old, so we're still trying to get a feel for how that process works. And in that, what we're doing and have been doing most recently is having conversations with other municipal BPACs or committees as they exist. And we had a list of those cities within North Carolina where the laws are the same that have active bicycle pedestrian committees. Excuse me, my eye waters. And so different committee members have been reaching out and having conversations with those organizations to kind of get a feel for how they function and how they're able to move the needle on things. And so segueing into the next agenda item, we're having some report outs for those people who've been able to make contact and have those conversations. Again, just kind of ticking off, who do you partner with? How do you move the needle within that bureaucratic structure, where funding comes from, what types of things do you get involved with on an advocacy or a communication standpoint, and then who your partners are in getting those things done. So Carol, I think in the minutes you'll see that Carol had a conversation with Charlotte. And then I'm going to pause. Has anyone else been able to make contact and have conversations with other? I know that Carol has spoken with Durham now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else had conversations with other locations? Michael, any luck with Asheville?
I have not. I've sent multiple emails and I have had no response. I actually just sent Matthew a message asking if someone has his telephone number. I'd be happy just to call. But yeah, I haven't had any response from email.
I think when Matthew was looking at that, their information on their website was pretty outdated, and I don't know, maybe they're a little bit defunct right now or had paused due to COVID, or who knows. Matthew, do you know anything more?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Asheville, the formal bike and pedestrian committee within the city, but Mike Sewell was actually with Asheville on Bikes, which is an advocacy organization. So I'll just do some more digging on that and see what I can find. And Michael, I'll get back in touch with you.
Okay. And Amy, you might have his contact information as well.
Yeah, I have Mike Sewell's. I think I have a cell phone, so if you need that, I can. Maybe I'll text him and say, "Hey, my peer is looking to get in touch with you." You've already emailed him?
I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Carol, do you want to go ahead and talk about Durham? I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, sure. I actually have it in a spreadsheet. Last time I was not very successful in pulling something up to share on screen. So I can try to do that if you'd like, or I can just talk through it if you wish. Any preference?
Talk through, I think.
Talk through it? Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Preference?
Happy to. Actually, it was rather interesting. I found a lot of similarities, sorry, in my conversation with Charlotte and with Durham. And if those of you that listened last month, you might pick up on those similarities, but I'll try to point them out as I go through the information. Charlotte was formed in 1999. Durham was formed in 2001, officially as a bike ped organization. It spun off of actually a Rails to Trails organization prior to that for their community. So they have, if you combine the two, they've been in existence since 1980s. The organization is a city-county organization, as was Charlotte. They this last year they changed their membership. I didn't ask them to describe what the membership was before, but they said that they had expanded it to 18 members. 9 are appointed by the city, 9 are appointed by the county, and they have defined positions that they like to make sure that their membership follows. So with the 9 from the city, there is a person that represents recreation, urban trails, and greenways, 1 that represents transportation planning policy, 1 represents walking, running, pedestrian community for marginalized groups, very specific there. 1 represents public transit, paratransit, and then they also look to North Carolina Central University for either a student or staff member. And this last year, and they're very proud of this, they actually have a youth representative and then 3 more at large. Members from the county are represented by a youth child advocate, a senior advocate, a disabilities advocate, a bicycle community representative, a student or staff member from Duke University, and then again 3 at large. So I thought it was interesting how defined they are and where they go to seek those different members. They also have 2, a council person and a commissioner attend every meeting. So I thought that that was very interesting as well. They usually ask the commissioners and council person to give updates on things that they're focused on in their meetings, so that they can identify maybe ties or different aspects of what their representatives are working on, to see if there is a bicycle or a pedestrian tie to that they can promote or enforce or reinforce. The Durham actually has a small budget. They use it primarily for sponsorships and or marketing. They receive $1,500 a year from, well, you know, I didn't ask who it was from, whether it was from the city or the county, maybe both. It's not very large, but it is $1,500. They use it to produce some of their materials, maybe that they hand out at their different, the tables that they put up at, say, their environmental fair or National Biking Month. But they make that money available to them so that they can use it for those different reasons. Let's see, I covered that. In 2019, they actually have an annual retreat every year, and in that annual retreat, the past 2 years it has been virtual, and it's about a half day. They actually spend about half of that time with the city, county representatives from different departments coming in and providing them updates. And then they'll spend, after that, when they hear what the city and county are doing, then they'll spend time talking about what their prioritization or focus for the year should be. And since 2019, they actually have kept the same focus, which includes 3 different areas. 1 is Vision Zero, 1 is Complete Streets, and the 3rd is Mobility Justice. Let's see. Communication. In Durham, they use Facebook and they use Twitter. Their city, county has not utilized Instagram. And I think all of you have heard me say before that that's my social media go-to. I'm not a Facebook person, but they are getting ready to add Facebook. They leverage that at this particular time more just to make sure that the community is aware of their committee and they promote some of the work that they do. I found it interesting that they actually promote profiles of each of the members on their Facebook posts so that the community knows who they are individually, personally. They also use it to promote some of the things that their partnering organizations promote and do in the community. And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. They have so a focus on safety. They are getting ready to start focusing on safety in some of their communications. They have 3 subcommittees, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, but the one particular subcommittee is focused on safety. They are the Education, Encouragement, and Engagement Subcommittee. And one of their members, a Duke student, is also involved on the Duke campus in cycling and walking. And Duke University has created a video to promote proper walking, riding, and safe walking, riding. And so they are working with Duke University to see if they can promote that beyond the campus. Their biggest partners in the community are Bike Durham, which is a very large and very active advocacy group. That is very similar to what we found in Charlotte, where they work with, what was the name of theirs? I'm looking on my sheet.
I think there's Sustain Charlotte and Charlotte spokespeople.
Yep, just found it. Thanks, Amy. Yes, Sustain Charlotte. So Charlotte works very closely with Sustain Charlotte, and Durham works very closely with Bike Durham. Let's see, the other ones that they partner with are Bike Co-op, Safe Routes to Schools, Black Girls Do Bike, and Vision Insights. I'll not go into how they partner with them. We'll get the spreadsheet out to you or give you access to the one that's been placed out on Google so you can read that a little bit closer. Again, it's much like Charlotte, where they will help promote those things, but they don't necessarily get actively involved in those things. And I can give more detail if you wish. What's the big dream for them? Or their goal is to focus and create equitable access to transit and mobility, healthy lifestyles for the entire community. That's their biggest goal. Digging a little deeper into their meetings. Their meetings are once a month. They are 2 hours long. They also have, as I mentioned, 3 subcommittees. The subcommittees also meet once a month. Their meetings are somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours. The first subcommittee is the Development Review Committee. They actually have a commission member from the city planning department that attends the Development Review Committee, the subcommittee meetings. They keep the subcommittee informed on new developments coming to the city and the county. The committee reviews plans for those new developments, and they provide feedback. One of the biggest successes they felt like they had this last year was actually getting a sidewalk extended from a new development to an existing sidewalk in the city, so that it would make things safer for people trying to walk or ride their bike from one one new area to the existing area within the city. The second subcommittee is the Bike and Pedestrian Plan Implementation and Evaluation, or PI. Very similar to the Development Review Committee, and they're actually thinking about combining those two together. They look at it a little bit more kind of the existing infrastructure that's there rather than new development coming into the community, but they believe that those two may be able to be combined. And then the last one is the Education Encouragement Engagement, which I gave you an idea already of what they do. Local activities that they support, they work with Bike Durham to apply for and receive funding to connect to, or this last year, I'm sorry, they worked with Bike Durham to apply for and receive funding to connect to Black-Brown communities. They worked with Bike Durham to plan Bike Month. They worked with Earth Day and provided bike valet parking and shared information in some of their brochures. And they just, the week after I spoke to them, they were getting ready to plan their, complete their retreat for this year and set their primary goals for the year. So any questions? That was a lot that I just went through.
Yeah, on their social media, Carol, is that social media account City of Durham managed, or is it an independent account that their BPAC has?
No, it's city managed.
Okay.
Yeah, they use the city infrastructure for that. Both organizations are excited that we're doing this work, and they also want to see our summaries when we're completed, and they want to stay in touch in the future. Which, after reading the article that you sent out, Sharon, I think that's how we create bigger success, is just by connecting all of these organizations together, whether it's an advocacy organization or whether it's another BPAC.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's exciting.
Our group is, Sharon, I was going to say,
Go
our
ahead.
group is only for the city of Winston-Salem, or is it city county? I was thinking it was just the city of Winston-Salem. Am I incorrect on that?
Greg, you're correct. Yeah, it's just the city.
Is there, with Durham, with your comments on Durham, would there be an opportunity or a possibility of making it countywide and then having the some county members be involved with what we're doing here?
I'll defer to Matthew on that.
Okay.
I will say that when you talk about Durham County City, they're kind of one and the same because it's a small county.
Yeah.
And then when you talk about Charlotte and Mecklenburg, very similar. The city almost encompasses, well, actually probably does encompass the entire county. So it's probably easier to make it city county there. Now I'll defer to Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I think a lot of the transportation functions are housed within the city, so finding the right contact and the right group to work with within the county might be the challenge. But if it's something you all would like to pursue, I can certainly do some research on how we would make that happen.
I was just trying to think of whether if we had county involvement, whether we'd have a little bit more participation to our meetings, as well as connections to other groups that may be countywide. So that was where my thought process was going with that. Was, are there other groups out there that are countywide or with the county that, like county recreation, I guess, that may be of interest to us, or provide information that'd be of interest to us? just a thought. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Matthew, I think a couple of people have mentioned this external participation, and our meetings are open, but if other people attend, we don't see them. But do you ever run a count or look at those external logins to see how many views we have? I did in the beginning and could see like how many people watched the YouTube videos, but I haven't looked in a long time.
Yeah, I usually take a look at that. I don't know the numbers offhand, but it's something we can certainly check on all the YouTube videos and see how many people are participating. I have not received any contact, so we make the agendas public, and I have not received any requests to join the actual meeting. So that's an option as well. That if people want to get involved, they can contact me, and then we make the link available to them if they want to actually join the meeting. So I have not had that any participation with that.
8 people, including myself, watched last month
Oh, you're looking at,
on
okay.
YouTube. Yes, I wanted to see what went down here. So
Yeah. And I didn't realize people had to request permission, because I've had a friend text me on one of our early meetings saying that they were watching.
Now they
So
may be
it was-
watching, but they can also request to actually participate in the
Okay, I
live
see. I
meeting.
see what you're saying. Yep.
Following on Greg's point, I'd like to give a nod to their representation of the universities and the youth. I think that would be a really cool thing, not only to get a different perspective, but also plant some seeds for people that would continue, in 10 years, they're going to be the leaders of the community. Get them started now.
Yeah, I agree. That caught my attention as well. I think Durham's such an interesting place to experience cycling. That Atlantic American Tobacco Trail. Had to think through the initials. It runs from the center of downtown through Duke campus and then all the way down to Apex. And if you're riding that, you can see the Cary Apex area where they have development codes that include greenway connectivity. You can take offshoots and ride into Raleigh if you follow all the way through. And over the past couple of years, there's been a ton of crosswalk improvements around Duke University in the upper end of the ATT, which I'm sure has been driven by some of those comments that you just made, having the university involved and that kind of thing. I'm going to assume that the university is a bike-friendly university, but I don't remember seeing that on the list in North Carolina. I don't know. But again, they could be a great example to hold up to Salem, Winston-Salem State, and Wake Forest here, once we are able to build more connections with them. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, Joshua has spoken with the group in Elkin. Joshua Swift, who's our County Health Department Director, is also a member of our committee, and he had another engagement this morning, so he's not here. Elkin does not have a city BPAC, but they have a group that operates in a very similar fashion, and has been able to gain a ton of community support and funding and buy-in, which is kind of the nature of Elkin anyway, but he was excited to be able to share back, so we'll hear from him later. And then Scott Miller, another committee member, who's typically in orthopedic surgery at Baptist during this time, had sent me some notes where he had spoken to a grassroots advocacy organization. It's a very small, it's just 10 people, but a physician had formed it, having lived other places and moved here and not feeling safe, had created this group to kind of move the needle. they really only had one meeting before COVID hit. They haven't met in person again. I think they do maybe do some rides together every once in a while. But he has a really strong interest in getting involved, backing something if we were to present them with an idea, you know, could help leverage community engagement or support or that kind of thing. But they definitely expressed excitement about knowing the group exists and future thoughts around being involved. Any other comments or questions around that?
This is Amy. What the subcommittee stood out to me because I know, I mean, I live in meetings. You can really only get so much done in an hour, sometimes even 2 hours, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. And I think it might make sense to have subcommittees that are very specific on what they look at and why, you know, what their area of focus is, and maybe, you know, tailor that group to the people who have the most expertise, plus an extra person who has no expertise to, you know, have a new perspective. But I like the idea of the subcommittees that could meet and then bring information back to the larger group.
Yeah, I do too. We've talked about that a couple of times, and probably don't have the bandwidth yet to get that going. One of the say issues, but one of the caveats with that is that the meetings need to be public, recorded, and Matthew may or may not need to attend, and so that stretches his time and capacity. But I agree, once we have kind of a list beyond communication and just getting our name out there and getting a feel for what we need to focus on, once we have clear targets beyond what we have now, I think we'll have to do that in order to actually get work done. Totally agree. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. We had Ed McNeil from City Communications Department meet with us last month. I did think it was interesting that they used their retreat to hear from city department leaders and get updates. We right now, again, we're kind of in a learning phase, so we're inviting different people to come in and speak and share with us. But that's something I kind of have in the back of my mind too. As we build up kind of a work plan, rather than take these meeting times with presentations, we could sideline those and do it in a retreat. But back to my point, we had Ed come in and talk about communications and planning and timing of that. Bike month comes up in May, and I think it would be great for us to feed Ed some topics or existing graphics, or you know, a list of graphics that need to be updated, that we'd like to use, messages we'd like to get out, and or if there are known events, to create a calendar that can be published. So I want to open up now, if anyone within the group is planning something for May that we should know about, and if anyone has had time to look at the graphics that Matthew shared along with the meeting agenda and minutes. Those are things that were in existence, had been used. Some of them are dated, some of them look fine, but any comments around those key messages and events that we'd like to maybe think about for May? Anyone?
I've signed the city up for Winston-Salem up for the Ride of Silence. That's the 18th of May, 7
Okay.
p.m. And
18th, is that what you said?
18th, yes, third Wednesday. That's like a standard for their globally or nationally, just 7 p.m. on the third Wednesday, and then the typical rain date is 10 a.m. on that Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, Winston can normally helps compile a calendar of events as we hear about them. We might actually also put on a few things. So I'll start trying to get a list together. And I know in years past, the city also had a calendar on their website. I think anywhere you can get the information so people are aware of activities going on, the more the better. So I'll share whatever I find out in the next couple weeks.
Great.
Also, the Bike More, which is Ardmore's community event, that's the 14th, Saturday, at I don't know, the park right there off Miller Street behind Redeemer. I think it's like 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or something like that.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody's interested, in Greensboro on the 7th, they'll have the Wheels on the Greenway event, just kind of showcasing their Greenway and have a bunch of pop-ups along the Greenway and stuff.
Okay. Thank you all. And yeah, as you hear of anything, you can go ahead and send those so we can start collecting and get a list to Matthew so that we can get them published on calendar and have Ed's team help communicating. Messaging wise, fresh on my mind, there was a cyclist who died from injuries in Chapel Hill this week with a person opened their car door into a protected bike lane. Looking at, North Carolina laws really put the onus on the cyclist when there are crashes involving cyclists and pedestrians. And that's one issue. That's certainly a future thing that will take every BPAC in the state, in addition to a whole lot of other people, to get that changed. But educating drivers on cycling rights and pedestrian rights and safe driving practices is definitely top of my mind. And I know Ed had mentioned that as well, that the police department is perhaps looking for materials or creating a campaign. Matthew, did you hear anything more detail-wise around that?
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Sharon.
I thought Ed had mentioned that the police department was looking at building a driver safety campaign of some sort, or maybe wanted help building out some communication. Do you know any more about that?
I don't, but I could follow up with Ed on that and see where they stand with that effort.
Yeah. It'd be great to partner with them.
Would we want to invite someone from the police department next month to speak?
I think we've talked about that. I don't know if we had a timeline. Matthew, is that a person you had already reached out to? I know Ed had mentioned their public information officer from the police department.
Yeah, I mean, we could work with the police department. I think, having Ed, though, work with us is probably the key to that effort. I think they're getting the information from the police department, and they'll develop the materials. So if there's a role for this group in that, I think it would be through Ed and through the marketing and communications department.
Yeah, and now that you say that, I think what I remember is that maybe we would be invited to join Ed when he's meeting with that person, or express an interest in meeting with that person outside of our meeting group.
And
I
vaguely
can check in
remember.
with him.
Yeah, I don't remember. But
maybe it's not so much to talk to them about what they'd like to communicate. Maybe it's more listening to what their concerns are, their fears are, and then we can get behind that to help them. Maybe just more of an update from them, from their perspective. What do they think the shortcomings are, or where can things be enhanced? Not so much a marketing campaign.
Well, I don't know about a marketing campaign, but just communication and awareness. Again, looking at our role as being liaisons. And this, I apologize for being a little bit fuzzy, but this is coming back to me in bits and pieces. I think Ed's comment was that we represent sort of two sides of the equation, and that having both of those voices in the room as he's developing whatever that communication and story looks like, from those who are in the vehicle side and those who are in the law enforcement side, but also those who are walking and riding and kind of seeing the impediments and risks out there. I think it's very much a two-way conversation.
I guess that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm thinking about Charlotte and Durham and how they have guests. And Sharon, Durham not only has the city departments come in on the retreat, but they actually have them come in each month to speak to them as well. Their monthly meetings are 2 hours, so they have about an hour focused on presentations from other organizations, and then an hour business meeting for their meetings. But I guess that's what I was thinking about, is how do we form that partnership with the police department, and how do we have communications going back and forth to show how we connect with them and support the efforts that they're trying to move forward with.
Matthew, what do you think best next steps are there?
Well, we've developed a list of potential guest speakers for this group, so I think it's a matter of going through that list and prioritizing them and setting up those meetings. So I'm happy to set those up. I would just seek your guidance in the order in which you would like for those different departments to come to the committee meetings.
Yeah, and we had suggested every other month so that we would have time to talk, which I guess is a little bit similar to what they do. They just do it 2 hours back to back. Again, looking at sort of a time frame, I know that at one point we had kind of a list of key safety topics and concerns, but it might be good to just create a new list, and then if we could share those with Ed. Again, I'm looking at, if he needs to develop any kind of graphic, update any graphic, create any print stuff, it would be great to get that in his hands probably by mid-March. Just from my own background in marketing, any kind of collateral, that kind of thing would need to be done, or at least turned over to his team by the end of March to have it ready by May. Social media is certainly easier to get posted. But he's also going to need to fit this into a calendar of other things that are going on. So my thought is that we'd like to kind of have a follow-up conversation with him, and then maybe based on his suggestion, either do an external meeting with the PIO, or have someone from the police department speak with us in March. I'd kind of defer to Ed a little bit though to see where he is in his process and what he needs from us and engagement that he would want. Any other thoughts? Oh yeah, and we did talk about too, once we get some materials, if we've got time right now. I keep watching the clock. We've got time if we want to look at those on the screen right now, the pieces that Matthew sent out. If we get some of those ready by May, I think it'd be great. We had talked about this in our last meeting too, for different members to go out and distribute, take them to your favorite running shop, that's Fleet Feet, or your bike shop, or the places that gives you a chance to introduce yourself, introduce the committee, talk about some of those issues, and we can divide and conquer that way. But Matthew, I have those I can share, or if you have them ready.
I do, yeah. I can
Okay.
share my screen.
Let's look at them on the screen and just kind of give an immediate kind of gut check on. having trouble with my computer today. It keeps jumping sizes on me. There we go.
All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, so I just opened up all of the materials that I had sent, and this was the branding logo and materials that we had created. This is in no particular order here, just educational materials about parking in bike lanes, where to park and where not to park. English and Spanish for that one. This was kind of the general walking and cycling safety brochure. It covered biking, walking, driving, and other aspects as well. It was really a compilation of the 4 other kind of cards that we created for those different modes. So if we look at, here was the Bike Smart card, Walk Smart, Drive Smart, and then kind of just those general safety messages. All of those messages were combined into this one trifold brochure that we created.
And do you have copies of this one?
I believe so, yeah. I think we have copies of all of these materials, actually. And Keith, you had asked that in the chat box, and we do. So, you know, I think it's great if we can get these to Fleet Feet and to the bike shops and wherever else you all think it might be good to have them.
Yeah, it's my experience, that one, the combo with the blue and the green, that's my favorite to give out, whether it's at a biking class or at a shop or an event, because everybody's a pedestrian. Most everybody drives a car at some point. People might bike. So you should know all these different things if you're going to be a good, you know, community member. So I like this one the best because it's got everything all together. And that's kind of my go-to when I'm giving out stuff. I hadn't seen the parking one before, and I thought that was a really good one, something that could translate to a social media post from the city pretty easily. And I would add 2, instead of it just being bike centric, you know, don't park your car on the sidewalk either. You know, some maybe taking this and building on it with a few of the other kind of no-nos. But this is the first time I've seen this one. I do like it.
I think this one was intended for the police department to actually place on vehicles.
Yeah, I do like that. I would like a couple. I'll keep them in my bike bag and stick them on a car when I go past them in the bike lane.
And then the final material here, this was a small wallet-sized card that we handed out to cyclists, just letting them know what their rights are and what their responsibilities are. And it was something very small that if you're on a bike, you know, it's not something you need a bag to put in. You can just stick this in your pocket very easily. And we printed it on a thicker material that was a little bit waterproof, so it would stand up a little bit better to the rigors of cycling. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or other comments about these materials, but like I said, we do have the hard copies, and I'm happy to get those out to everybody.
Hey, Keith, sorry. I was going to ask if there's something that you use in your Couch to 5K programs. How do you talk about safety with folks who are maybe new to getting out in public spaces?
Yeah, we have those talks early on. It's been obviously a couple years since we've done one. We're actually getting ready to start one in a month. And that's why I was afraid I'd missed the details of this stuff from the last meeting when I wasn't there, but we could certainly get this in hard copy form to all those participants. We're thinking about 100 we'll have. And then, you know, we've got areas in the store where we've tried to establish kind of just public communication spots, kind of like you'll see in coffee shops, which was something that crossed my mind. Coffee shops would be another great place for this kind of stuff. People, you know, I peruse those boards from time to time. That'd be a great place. But, and And then if I can use these materials, maybe I can have them blown up into poster size just to make them a little bit more presentable. But I think it's a great opportunity. We've had, going back to the police department, we have invited different people. John Morris is a good friend who's a runner and a cyclist who's come and spoken to our groups before. Certainly not, he's a lieutenant or whatever he is, but he doesn't have any formal role in bicycle and pedestrian responsibility, if you will. But he's a great speaker and he's done that for us before. But yeah, so these will be great materials for us to use.
Matthew, do most of these have a social media component that's already created and kind of ready to use?
No, they don't. So these were, I think when these were created, the focus was definitely on the printed material and distributing them at events and through our in-person trainings and activities.
Okay.
If those, low-hanging fruit, if they could be converted to, social media, those things we could share, certainly. I don't know what that would entail.
I can talk to marketing and communications about that they take the existing materials and hopefully it's a pretty quick process of just converting this to something they could use online.
Even just that branding one, get the idea in people's heads so they start to recognize it more.
And that was the intention with that, was to keep that consistent across all of our materials so that that just starts to sink in with people that there is this ongoing effort, and when they see that, they know it's associated with all of that, all that's going on.
Any other comments?
This goes in the brainstorm category. Feel free to dismiss it. But every day I drive on the highway, I look at all those DOT boards that are either Amber Alert or nothing. I wonder if there'd be any way to maybe use those to get for just awareness of Bike Month. I don't know what the rules and regulations for what they'll put on those are, but or who even controls them. It's just funny to see those boards blank about 90% of the time.
So I know NCDOT controls those. I'm not sure exactly, what their process is for accepting messages or what we can do, but it's something I can explore.
Yeah, I love that idea because the whole Bike Walk NC campaign comes out of the state DOT, correct?
Yes, I mean, the state DOT has Watch for Me NC, and there are a
Watch
number
for
of
NC.
safety programs that they sponsor and lead. So, yeah, if it's an eligible use of that, I think certainly something that would be in line with their existing programs.
And then I'm wondering, is there, do you currently have any materials that address sort of the accessibility, some of these other issues, wheelchair safety, having this a conversation that came up, and I posted a recent call for engagement around a national issue, and both myself and another friend who had been injured and disabled for a period of time talked about how difficult it is to get around, especially our downtown area, in a wheelchair or on crutches or with any form of impediment. Do you have materials that also incorporate those types of awareness issues?
I don't think we have anything specific in terms of materials for that. I think you know, there are, yeah, we don't have anything related to that, I don't believe.
Anything else we're missing? I think it sounds like we need to connect with Ed. We need to connect with the police department to find out what exactly their goal was, or their question was, or what they're planning. Anything else? And we'll just keep trying to get in touch with these other groups. Greensboro, wasn't that another one that we had on the list? Who was the person trying to connect with Greensboro?
Matthew.
We don't have a name for Greensboro yet, is that right?
Because they operated as an MPO, MSA, Matthew was going to reach out to them.
Okay.
But I'm happy to do that, Matthew.
Here, I'll try to reach out to the staff person and see what I can get from them.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? All right, well, we are at 9:59, so we'll wrap up. Next meeting is March 9th. I think it's the same date, March 9th. And in between then, feel free to email them. If you come across events that are coming up, let us know. We'll start building out that calendar, get it shared wherever it can be shared. That's it. Thanks all.
Thank you, Sharon.
Have a
you all.
good rest of February. Yeah, nice to have you both.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.